Moto Guzzi 2017 V7 clutch adjustment.
When the rear tire is off, it's also a good time to adjust your clutch lever because it's easier to get to. As you can see on the hand operated one, it is about as far out as it can go, and it's not bad. You start by taking the free plate out, just loosen that lock nut there, and of course go and screw that all the way back in. That gives you the maximum amount of free play at the lever here. I've just screwed this all the way in now, and lubricated while I was doing this. There's a little bit of lubrication. You take a look at this arm now. This has really got a lot of space in here. Way too much space to really do the clutch correctly. But that's why I can now make the adjustment at the other end behind the rear tire and make this fit about correctly. And then in the future I can screw this back out as minor adjustment is required as the clutch wears a little bit. So this is about right for where we want to be as far as go, and we'll go make the adjustment on the other. The clutch cable actually comes down from up there, comes down through here, and this is where most motorcycles would have an adjustment. You screw this in and out, but this one does not. That's what makes it so difficult to adjust when the tire's on, because you have to adjust it back there. Do you see that adjusting nut, which works a lot like you do on your valve adjusters? You have to move that. You have to move that pin in and out, and that of course is the lock nut to make final adjustment. That moves this actuating arm in and out and takes out the necessary slack or unnecessary slack, whichever you're trying to get rid of. So you can see now, if you have a tire on, that is virtually impossible to get to. But right now, it's really, really easy. So this is the time. So there you see it is. This is a 13 millimeter, but try as I might to hold the actual pin or the bolt while I was backing off the nut so I could loosen it and screw this pin in a little bit further to make the adjustment. The pin always came out with a nut. I couldn't do it otherwise. So what I ended up doing is just taking it all the way out, and sure enough, Loctite had been applied on the nut to the bolt, so they were like frozen together. So I'm going to take it all the way out and break that apart. And of course, that tells me I probably really ought to put some lock nut back on it, since the factory did it as well. What that clutch adjuster pin looks like, as you can see the Loctite on the bolt itself. It's actually on this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this flat end into the vise so it doesn't turn, and force break that off so this nut would be all the way out. You can see so it's in there. Then I tested to make sure that I could screw the nut in and out freely, that it was really loose with a pair of pliers once I get it back inside. So there I am, being able to turn the nut with the bolt, I should say, the adjusting bolt. Get a close-up look in there, you'll see that bolt, or the bolt is adjusted in, but the nut is still free. I've adjusted it in, or just get snug up against it, backed it off just a little bit, so I have just a little bit of play here. Now what I want to do is I want to tighten this nut without moving that pin. And as you can see, it has a tendency to want to move with it still because of that. So I'm going to have to remember kind of the position. That's kind of lined up straight with the arm. And I'll tighten it down, try to hold this as best as I can, and keep it in that position. And of course, check to make sure the play is about right as well. I screwed it into where it just started to touch, and then backed it off just a hair. So I have just a little bit of play at this end. And as you can see, it's really perfect to play. And you can see there's a little tiny bit of play. It's not riding, just a little tiny bit of play, so it's freewheeling when it's out. I'm going to apply a little bit of grease here and here where this. Okay, we've done all the adjustments at the rear end. Come back up here to the front where the front adjuster is, and you can see right now this adjustment here, free play, is almost exactly the same as it was when we started, and this is completely right. The major difference, of course, is the adjuster screw now at the front end is completely turned in. And so as I need to make more final adjustments to adjust that in the future, I can simply screw this back out rather than have to get back at that rear tire where it's very difficult to get to and make adjustments here. The next thing to do, and the final thing to do, of course, is to give it some lubrication. And I'm giving it some silicone spray. You're not wiping off the excess a little bit. Putting back the rain guard cap over it. So that fits back over nice and neatly like that. And it's all done and ready to roll. Clutch fully adjusted And I won't have to get on that back end where the wheel is for quite some time.